Number one, kind of piggybacking off of some of the stuff I spoke about in the previous podcast concerning some of the very unsavory allegations that have been levied against Derek May. It seems like there's a bit of an issue in dance music, man. In my area of interest, right? I am a fan and a absolute whore for nightlife. Probably the wrong thing to say at this junction, but whatever. You know what I mean, right? I'm an absolute fan of the culture. I'm an absolute fan of dance music. I'm an absolute fan of it in all its different guides, all different genres. So I obviously have got a long history in promoting events in London, DJing here in London. So I'm very about to travel the world to various clubs and hanging out and seeing some of the biggest DJs playing some of the best festivals around the world. I am very much a part of it. But reading some of these accounts and kind of uncovering what happens behind the scenes with professionals, let alone punters. I understand there might be some creeps in the crowd. I get that. But knowing the difficulties that are, ahead of women in the industry, first of all, and just getting recognized and then having to kind of navigate through the creeps is really eye opening. It has to be said, it really is eye opening. I knew there was some sort of debauchery happening. We've all seen it. We've all been maybe a part of it where you kind of end up in a mad, crazy night at someone's afters and you're like, what the hell am I doing here, right? Everyone's kind of been in those situations, but to know that professionals or aspiring professionals are going through this day to day behind the scenes with their fellow peers is just mind boggling. And this is another account here from Mixmag, the following, which is titled a gas ceiling with razor wire, the harsh realities for women working in dance music. Is penned by Annabella Ross, the same person that did the whole expose on Derek May, and it features an account of a woman who has over 20 years experience in dance music industry, talks about her coercion, bribery and harassment she faced in her career. The whole thing is super harrowing, but one of the main bits I wanted to kind of pull out was this bit, as I guess it's an interview. It says, the question is following. Alan Belarus asks a woman, anonymous lady in question. So, as a woman with 20 years experience in the music industry and 10 of those years working in dance music, what would you like to tell us about the inappropriate behavior towards female colleagues in the workplace? She says, 20 years is a long time, and generally you start to a very young age in music industry. So your first experience is usually quite polarizing one. When inappropriate sexual language or advances first happen, you either kind of accept it or fortify yourself against it. You leave or you leave the industry, right? Which is really harrowing in itself, right? So either you kind of suck up and sort of like, um, suck it up and accept it's going to be a thing and defend yourself as best as you can, or you just pick a different vocation, which is, you know, I don't know. The amount of people that we have lost just off the back of this, talented people, is just, it beggars belief. It continues. And I think at that point, the industry loses a lot of the talent, because if you're not alone, if you're not able to weather the first few jarring experiences on of the climate, it is going to get a lot worse later on. Because there's because it oh sorry, I'm going to later on, because there's a climate, a landscape, as a why is it written like this? And it continues. It's going to get worse later on, because it is a climate, a landscape, as it is present in practically everything you do, everywhere you go, everyone you meet, and everyone who is prepared to acknowledge or work alongside you, prefer you or to ignore you. For women of color, there are also layers again. The industry is losing really talented personnel, because when you first enter the industry, you are so green. You don't even have life experience. You don't have industry experience. You don't have gender experience. And you have a lot of people who can be 10, 20, 30 years older than you, influencing your direct environment. And you can be considered fresh meat arriving into the industry. And if you think people don't talk in dark corners like that, then you are naive. Quote unquote locker room is not just an exclusive domain of political presidents. I have overheard conversations that are akin to sexual sweepstakes regarding who will get there first to a new face in the scene. When you look historically at the music industry, the typical jobs included for women included were receptionist, secretary, PA, coat check girl, office managers with low responsibilities and therefore less power and low pay, but very high accessibility. These positions tend to be incredibly unstable, and that opens everybody up to manipulation, because there are few discernible routes for a woman into and through the industry. It has gotten a lot better, but it's still based in a personal determination more than anything else. But there are not many educational routes where you're going to learn about the reality of the music industry, even management or artist management, and then be placed on on a career carousel, which is going to take you through all these different roles and opportunities. You usually have to fight to get in. You have to struggle in every single place you move to. And because there isn't a roadmap through the industry, there is rarely a HR department to protect you. You are on your own. Most of the music industry is freelance, contract or interim roles. There's very little detail written down in terms of employment contracts and expected behavior from your company until you start getting into those important money making positions. So all of those checks and balances that people usually experience in other businesses are not always there. And as this industry is built on the nighttime economy, it's a unique environment that often means people don't have their wits about them, and as predators can move in. So many issues and pitfalls there. I think not only affect women, well, mostly are going to definitely negatively affect women worse. Well, are going to affect women worse, but I think are definitely issues that affect people that are in a company, in the life industry, regardless, right? So I look at myself, and I think when you're coming up and you're trying to DJ, especially if you don't have experience putting on your own nights, you end up kind of going through this circuit where you do these sort of like pay for play things, where you're paying to play these rubbish places in Soho, or doing open deck nights in some undescript location, and there's obviously prime for exploitation there, not being told about certain things, getting there, the equipment doesn't work, loads of points, right, where there can be some hurdles. But usually there are hurdles about equipment and maybe not a lot of people turning up to the night you're putting on. But they're not hurdles where you actually think you're actually kind of afraid for your own personal safety. And that's the issue that I see reading these sort of accounts, especially for women in the nightlife industry. Now, part of me feels a little bit pessimistic, where I think, how is this ever going to change? Because it's a nightlife industry, it kind of generally is going to attract deviants just because it's in the nighttime, and I think people just tend to think they can get away with stuff because it's dark. That's an unfortunate part of the thing. And I also think there's an unfortunate part of the industry which is kind of accepted, where there are kind of occasions it does kind of lend itself to debauchery. Let's just say that, right? There are people who kind of get into it just for that kind of side of things, right? And that is a thing, right? Of course, it kind of helps when it's sort of amicable. So it sort of helps when it's something that you both come into it with sort of, the same sort of feelings. It's like, you think of all the legendary sex clubs in Berlin and stuff, whatever it may be. Everyone's going in there consensually knowing what's up, right? But there's also an element of like, yeah, there's a line that you shouldn't cross. There's obviously a code of ethics in place. There's rules. There's just general manners, whatever it may be, that are placed that are going to ensure that people behave. And obviously, again, that's a different kind of climate. There's checks and balances around people, right? If ever you've been to Berlin or Berghain in general, and you try and do things that you would have done in your own club spaces in your own local city, and you have people that are in the environment that are not even part of the management of the club telling you off and telling you, no, you can't do that, right? That goes to show that kind of helps to cultivate an environment that feels somewhat safe, because everyone's sort of like looking out for each other. But when left to their own devices, it feels like something like this will never change, right? Because people are just out for their own gain. But part of me thinks optimistically that the more of these accounts we have speaking openly about the issues behind the scenes, the more we're going to come to solution. Because for myself personally, especially when I used to put on nights, I kind of went out of my way to book obviously female DJs, because I'm very aware of the lack of the discrepancy, especially in a band that I'm in a sort of like lower to lower tier of DJs. There is definitely a lack of DJs playing who are female in the scene. It just is a thing. If they are around, they usually always kind of maneuver in all girl groups. And now reading these accounts, it makes complete sense. They travel in numbers to make to feel safe and to kind of look out for each other. But I don't think that's necessary. I don't think the only way for girls to play is to get booked on a flipping female only agency. That's ridiculous, right? They should be able to feel safe playing on any lineup in any kind of environment, because people are out there looking after them. And I've always kind of gone out of my way to try and do that. Book some females, when I've created space, make sure it's welcoming and appealing to everybody, just so that everyone can feel safe, relax, and that they can have good memories of the place that they came to that's got my name attached to it, and that they want to come and support me for a future thing. That's it, personally, right? It doesn't even go as far. It's just not even as altruistic as that. I want to make sure everyone feels sexually liberated, all this sort of like. No, it's not even that highfalutin. It's just the fact that I just want to make sure everyone has a good time, so they come back next time. And I want to go out of my way to make sure that girls who go out and usually feel, creeped on and feel a little bit violated, to make them feel extra well, so that they can go and kind of preach the gospel of my parties to 3 or 4 of their friends, and then they can become friends later on, or fans later on, regardless. And that should be the MO for everybody involved in it. But I do think there should be an extra onus being put on people, especially some of the older folk, to go out their way to definitely bring, or definitely have to kind of put their arm around some females in the industry when they're coming up, because it feels like at every turn when you're kind of going up and you're trying to make your way, especially if God forbid you're pretty, right? There's always going to be somebody that's looking to kind of exploit you and take advantage of your situation. And that's the issue that I'm kind of having, that I kind of not sure how we're ever going to rectify. That this, especially when it goes, the higher up you go and you're starting to kind of progress your career, you're starting to get endorsements, it feels like you're always going to come into contact with people that are going to try and test you. Now, whether or not it's a thing of like, hey, we have to recognize this is always going to happen, let's kind of give these females information beforehand so that they know what to look out for. That might be a thing. And there's also, again, I said before, where I definitely think there is a perverse danger, or there's a perverse danger. No, there's a real danger in maybe us not looking at the bigger picture and seeing what actually is the danger. Isn't just the monsters, it's mostly the network of people around them that allow it to happen, or the scene, wherever it may be, right? That allow these kind of mad situations to transpire. That's where we should really be putting our eyes on, because if you're telling me that somebody that's a sexual abuser, sexual assaulter that goes on and creeps on women at night times and takes advantage of their power position and sort of tries to exchange whatever career trajectory for sexual favors, if you're telling me that no one else on the scene knows about this and these things are only done behind the scenes, behind closed doors, in a booth, in a toilet booth somewhere, I don't believe it. I think managers know, agents know, friends know, supporting DJs know, photographers know, everyone knows, everyone's seen what's going on, but they just choose to look the other way because they don't want to get in trouble and they don't want to maybe upset the apple cart and get a bad rep in the industry for being difficult to work with. That's the problem. We need to give those people, we need to tell those people to be brave, to step up and protect women, stand up in front of them and or stand up in front of them and make sure that they are not put in these uncompromised position, because this is really bad, man. Really, really bad. It continues to say, can you talk a little bit about the business practices within the industry that concern unwanted social advances, bribery and coercion? She says, so there are a number of different tactics in terms of coercion. I have touched on them after our culture and the proliferation of alcohol and drugs. So getting people drunk, people putting drugs into their drinks, all those kinds of things have been very much a part of the parcel industry for years. Like, Jesus Christ. We have to understand the manipulation of drunk people is strategy to get information, leverage deals that would not be ordinary to be achieved, and create anecdotes that undermines people professionally by leading people into screen scenarios that they would not normally choose, and therefore create secrets between instigator and the focus on the manipulator. Ah, that is mad, isn't it? God, that is sickening. Get somebody involved and put them in a compromising position, that creates a bond between the assaulter and the person that's the victim, which then leads to years and years of prolonged abuse. Shit. I say it continues. I know of people who unwillingly had drugs put in their drinks, a female tour manager and a female artist. The easy access to date rape drugs such as Rohypnol and GHB, especially over recent decades, culminated in a huge problem. Predators try to get somebody drunk in order to take advantage of them. If one adds tranquilizers into a situation, the victim has no chance to escape. This has devastating impacts on them privately for years afterwards because they cannot escape their abusers professionally. This is true, and this is very similar to the allegations that were kind of put towards Eric May, or Eric Murillo before he passed, and of course Derek May now. They are word for word the same things, right? This idea that you come into a safe space, appearingly what is kind of appears to be a safe space, and then through drinks and manipulation, they show you one face, and then after the drinks they show you a completely different face. Harrowing. One of the argest experiences I have ever worked with is a foreign promoter who was trying to bring me into a global network, as I had contacts with big brands that wished to reach the youth style or lifestyle audiences. I had a requirement for a local partnership in a specific location. One needs to be able to string together a number of events around the world, and that forces you to sometimes have to choose individuals that you would never have in your professional environment. In certain territories, the level of expertise and professional expectation is high, but internationally it can be very difficult to find people of a certain caliber, especially in the late night economy. We are frequently come across people who are very dubious characters who do not often find out until too late. People will tend to hide their true character and behave professionally when there is money and opportunity on the table, and when you are dealing with them in the office during the day. The late night economy historically attracts people who are not home amongst illegal prostitution, who are at home, sorry, amongst illegal prostitution and drugs, very, very true. Any business that is cash rich, whether it's a laundrette or a nightclub, is going to attract dubious and unwelcome personalities. I've had to deal with a foreign promoter hiring a blatantly underage sex worker and taking his child back to his hotel room. Jesus Christ. And DJ handlers who, as well as organizing the charges, professionals touring life, also organize the prostitutes on arrival at every city on tour. One can also find themselves in the company of corrupt public officials. I've been invited to what I thought was a professional meeting and ended up sat in a meeting with a city chief of police officers who was chopping out lines of cocaine in what could be described as a brothel while I'm trying to get them to approve an event license. Mamma mia. I have a lot of similar anecdotes. Sorry. I have a lot of similar anecdotes from across the world as a woman traveling on one's own. This opens one up to a lot of potential situations that can go very, very badly, very quickly, and leave one feeling afterwards as a co-conspirator or an enabler, when in fact you are just a witness of a victim yourself. Like, God Almighty, man, harrowing story to read. And again, I'm just one guy. I don't know what only thing that I can do in my, because again I try to get some lessons from this and apply it to my everyday life, is whatever I put on an event, if ever I book a female, it makes sure that they are feeling incredibly safe, and provide them with as best an environment possible for them to kind of show off their talents, gain a better fan base, and just have a hell of a time, and try and put my best foot forward that way. But I don't know, as an industry overall, I really do think the onus needs to be put, a focus needs to be put on the support network around people that allows them to get away with this sort of madness, because there's no way, shape or form that these secrets can be secrets for no long. They need to be brought out there in the open, and people need to be held accountable, especially the network of people that support them. That is what I think.